So we're back in Arizona. This is at our house on 69th Place. I'm Michael Joy. This is another episode in Absolute Joy, the series Long Short Stories. We are still in Arizona in this journey of storytelling, and this time the story ranges from a very nosy neighbor with a tiny dog, and it kind of ends up with Sasquatch.
It ends up with what?
Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
What is a Sasquatch?
Oh, the big ape men in the forest with the big feet. They leave the tracks.
The Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot.
White, hairy.
Well, I don't know. We don't know the hair color.
I just know it from cartoons.
Well, there's a whole lot of stuff on Netflix about the Bigfoot. Big feet. Why just 1 foot? Why is it not big feet? It's not like they hop.
Exactly.
They're well-balanced creatures.
Nosy neighbor.
Yeah, so we're back in Arizona. This is at our house on 69th Place. That's hilarious. That was really the name of the street. That sign, you've heard me say before, the high school kids. I think we had more days without the sign, more years without the sign than days we did have the sign. They always, 69th Places in college rooms around there was times they used to bolt the sign in and then they began to weld it in because they'd replaced it so many times. It's like, come on. So this is on 69th Place. What happened on 69th Place was each house had a lot. And although they weren't fancy houses, they were ranch houses. The ranch house was kind of low setting and some of them were set back. In Arizona, you have oleander bushes. Oleander bushes grow into these, it's basically a desert fence. Oleanders are poisonous, so if you're a Boy Scout, you never use the sticks to roast your hot dog. It was kind of this windy road, and our neighbors, you were far enough apart to not know your neighbors as a kid, unless they were your age, but close enough that it was kind of boring and people kind of looked at each other. And we had some unusual neighbors. You heard me tell the story about the barbed wire fence with the Kimberly family, Kimberly Clark Kleenex. And then we had, my sister reminded me of Nosy Henry. Nosy Henry was, I'm not good, because this is when I was maybe 8 or 9. And so I was just a little shaver. And Nosy Henry was this guy, oh my God, I can see him. He was short and as round as he was tall. And he used to tuck in his shirt tight into his pants, but his belt was up above his belly button. And his pants were tapered. He looked like something you would knock over, like those weeble wobbles. You hit him, but they can't fall over. I don't know. And he used to walk this tiny little Chihuahua dog. I was oblivious to this guy, other than the mismatch, and the dog was the size of his shoe, right? I think he was out walking to lose weight. I don't know what he did for a living, if he was an adult or a child adult. I don't know that part of it. But he got this 3-wheeled bicycle car. And at the time, this was cutting edge technology. You sit in it. You know what a paddle boat is? It's like that, except it has 1 wheel in the front and 2 in the back, and there's a bench in the back, and it has a fiberglass body. I don't know why it had the fiberglass body. He used to ride up and down the street in his 3-wheeled car, and then the dog had like sat next to him and this, that, and the other. And from then on, I became fascinated in all things. That's probably why I wanted a go-kart. And I said, William, why'd you call him Nosy Henry? And she said, oh, he used to peek in everybody's windows. Oh, it was a common thing, apparently. So that was Nosy Henry. Then we had Boozy Byron. Byron was this really tall, skinny guy, and he always walked with a drink. He never walked straight. I used to see him walking on the street all the time, and I was too young to notice this, but I'd walk with him sometimes, just because, oh, it's someone walking on the street, you know, someone to talk to. It was a very safe area. Tall, skinny guy, kind of sunken chest, and he was like a skeleton. I didn't know as a kid, well, that's alcoholism, right? I told my dad one day, yeah, Byron pinched my ass. My dad's like, tell me exactly what happened. My dad didn't say anything to me, but I never saw Byron again. No, my dad's not a killer. I'm just saying the man changed his route.
Oh.
No, my dad was a child psychiatrist. I mean, he didn't mess around with anything that was not right for kids. So I remember he was asking me all these questions, like, you know, I didn't know this was like a sexual thing as a kid. I was clueless. And I'm like, oh no, we were just joking around and da da da. It's like, okay. Clueless, right? Clueless. This is what it's like for a kid to be in a neighborhood, is they're oblivious. So where does the Sasquatch part come into this story? One of the houses, a guy was a ham radio operator. Do you know what a ham radio is?
I know what a radio is.
Okay, a ham radio, they're not as common these days. There was old radio guys that in World Wars, they were radio stations that you could set up in your house. They had these big tall towers and they could relay around the world, and they were responsible for people staying in touch with each other around the world. One would patch and they could patch into phones and things like this. My dad's dad was a ham radio guy and my dad was a ham radio guy. Probably even in memory care, I could ask him what his ham radio name is. It's one of the oldest ones, K. He used to talk about our neighbor who had a half dome in their backyard. And he said, yeah, he bounces his signal off the moon. We had antennas. Now, this was the only guy in the neighborhood that had that kind of technology. Oblivious, right? It was just some house with a metal shed in the back to us, a curved metal shed. That's what it looked like. So, close that chapter. Life goes on, life goes on, life goes on. I'm in the culinary world in my mid-30s. Open the chapter. I'm at a trade show and I'm talking with one of the companies that used to distribute our products. I just got the chills. He was there with one of his sales reps that has worked with him for, let's say, 20 years. She's in her 50s, very well established, this, that, and the other. They knew each other for a long time. She was a premium salesperson, credible is what I'm saying here. At this point, they had moved this event to Arizona. It used to be in Las Vegas. It was at the JW Marriott in Scottsdale. I was saying, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of fun for me to come back to Arizona. I grew up here. And she was like, you grew up here? Where did you grow up? I'm like, oh, Paradise Valley. She's like, my family lived in Paradise Valley. And she goes, where'd you live, Paradise? I said, oh, by the McCormick Railroad Park. She's like, I know exactly where that is. We used to hold up the train. They had a train ride and we'd play. She goes, yeah. And I said, oh, on 69th Place off Mockingbird. She's like, 69th Place? You lived on 69th Place? I'm like, where are we going with this? I'm like, just spit it out. Stop making me say all this stuff. She's like, my family had a house on 69th Place. And she said, do you know, one time, she said, my brother came in scared to death. And she said it was, he told me this Bigfoot story. Her boss is like, this is a sane woman that I've known for 20 years. And now all of a sudden, this is the first time I've ever heard the word Bigfoot come out of her mouth. Hans is like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I'll tell you. She said, when we were growing up, I think it's blurred because this is her telling me a story of her childhood, so I can't remember. I only remember the key pieces. Now, first off, this house was not like in a completely rural, faraway place. We were like a street. People walked and biked. It was at the foot of a mountain, but it was not developed Arizona. It was like clusters and patches. We used to go out to what was called Bell Road to shoot our guns, and now Bell Road is like a movie center, right? There's like, big houses, and it's grown up that much. You gotta kind of geosync yourself into this. It was suburban desert, but not far away wooded area. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, my parents were out of house. We kids were at home, and we hear a clunk, clunk, clunk on the window or something like this. I don't remember, a door, window. I don't think it knocked on the door. And she said, my older brother, who was a tough football kid or just not afraid kid, he's like, I saw someone move out there. I'm gonna go see what it is. He goes outside and they're waiting, and he comes back in, he shuts the door, and she said he's pure white. She's like, he couldn't talk, he was breathing weird. He was like, something shook this guy up. And so what it was, I go, oh, see, and I got the chills because I know the house. And they finally got him to talk. He says, don't go, no, don't go out there, don't go out there. And so the shortness of the story is that he went out to the backyard and he saw this Bigfoot thing, put his hand on the fence, and the cinder block fences were 6 feet tall. We all had them around the swimming pools. Cinder block fence, put his hand, and he saw it leap over the fence in one casual jump. And I'm thinking, oh, it would have landed in the Gootneck's yard, our neighbor's yard. And she's like, my brother was not into that shit. And she's like, I have never told anybody this story in my entire life. And I'm like, lucky me, but I knew the street. There's no follow-up of where this went or the footprint exploration. I was so shook up. All these nosy neighbors, maybe it was a nosy Bigfoot, who knew? But it was highly unusual. Who would take the time to make up a story and geosync and knew the house? And she talked about her dad with the ham radio. So I knew it wasn't BS. And I knew the fence because she was describing. She's like, cinder block fence with the post and the orange block. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I walk by your house all the time, right? We used to dirt bike behind there. And I was thinking, what big furry thing? Olin Kimberly could not jump over a 6-foot fence. Nosy Henry, no way. Boozy Byron, he would have walked into the fence. Something unusual happened in that neighborhood. It was really, to this day, I don't know. I never had a Bigfoot experience at all in that neighborhood. I think Bigfoot's real.
So nobody really seen him?
Oh, there's good footage of them. Yeah, more and more because people have phones. It's not one dude in a fur thing. No, there's many, many sightings. The closing line is, hey, growing up in Arizona was really boring until 30 years later you find out that Bigfoot was your neighbor.